Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sree's Global COVID-19 Show. My name is Sree Sreenivasan, and I have the honor of convening this conversation about various aspects of the pandemic. We talk about the health situation, we talk about the economic situation, and we talk about what is happening with racial justice in this country. Today, we have a very special episode for show number 267. Meet Cheryl Willis Hudson and Wade Hudson. They're the co-editors of The Talk, Conversations about Race, Love, and Truth, and founders of the pioneering Just Us books, which has published more than 50 multicultural titles for young people in its 32 years. Please do check out justusbooks.com. You will meet Cheryl and Wade in just a moment. Hi, everyone. I'm Sree. Thank you so much for being here. I'm the Marshall Loeb Visiting Professor of Digital Innovation at the Stony Brook School of Journalism, and I am thrilled that you're all with us. I'm also the co-founder of Digimentors, a social, digital, and virtual events consulting company, and we do all kinds of conferences and seminars and talk shows for other folks. So if you have an event, conference, something that's coming up, do get in touch with us. Sree at digimentors.group or Sree at Sree.net. We'd love to talk to you. We've done events for 50 people and for 100,000 people. We bet your events are somewhere in between those numbers. So do get in touch, and you see my email address right on the screen. If you haven't seen our shows before, we have done more than 260 episodes. Our first 250 we did in 250 days. Now we're more like once or twice a week. We've had more than 450 guests from 73 cities and 20 countries. Our archives are at youtube.com/Sreenet, and we're in partnership with Scroll Global and Scroll.in. We're very grateful to them for simulcasting us right now. We are also super grateful to our producers, Rose Horowitz at Rose Horowitz 31 and Vandana Menon, Vandana_Menon. They have both been with us since day one, and it's been an incredible journey working with them. Rose, in fact, will be joining us a little later as a guest host to ask some questions. So right now we're live on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn. Please hit share so your friends and family can watch live or watch later, or tag anyone who you think would be interested in conversations like these, and you know that they will benefit from it. So let's get ready to bring our guests onto the show. Our guests are Cheryl Willis Hudson and Wade Hudson. They are the founders of the pioneering Just Us books, which has published more than 50 multicultural titles for young people in its 32 years. And they'll be talking, among other things, about what it's like to run a publishing business during the pandemic. And they will talk to us about The Talk, conversations about race, love, and truth. I am so delighted to welcome onto our stage right now our guests, Cheryl and Wade. So hello, folks. How are you?
Hello, Sree. How are you?
Hi.
We're so glad to be with you. And actually, several of our friends have been guests on your show before. Nikki Grimes
And
Jerry Craft. So we're happy to join you this evening.
Well, 2 stars of the of our shows, and we're very grateful to them. And thank you for joining us. I know Rose has wanted to have you on our show, so we are just thrilled that you could be here. I should tell our audience that you folks are still at work in your New Jersey office at 9 o'clock at night. I'm at work, but I'm at home. You're still at the office. So earlier, folks, you should know I apologized on behalf of all of us to the Hudsons and said, we're so sorry. And they said they do a lot of these Zoom calls.
For the course for us, we are always at the office working.
That's incredible, and very, very generous of both of you for being for giving us this time. Let me ask you the first question I ask all my guests. How are you both doing, and how's your family handling the pandemic?
we're doing well. It's always a little bit stressful because you're out of your regular routine. We normally do a lot of traveling to conferences and things like that for our publishing, but our kids who are adults now live nearby, so they've been kind of taking care of us as their parents, and we're working things out. It's been a good time, although it's been a little bit stressful just because of everything that's been happening in the country with the pandemic.
And
Yes. Go ahead.
I think we've gotten a little stir crazy from time to time, wanting to get out. But on the flip side of that, unfortunately, there are a number of friends of ours and even extended family members who have succumbed to COVID-19.
Yeah.
Quite a number. So that's a sad part of this journey as well over the last 13 months.
So sorry to hear that, and our deepest condolences. And this is what they've been saying, that everyone will know at least one person who has passed away. You've known multiple folks. I've known multiple folks, and that number, 500,000 dead.
Yes.
It's just stunning to think about. And that the various news organizations have been trying to display visually what that means. One article said that's more than the people buried in Arlington. So if they needed to bury them, they would have to hold New Arlington Cemetery. Or if you line them up in buses, all of these folks would go from Philadelphia to New York City or Philadelphia to Washington, D.C. That's how long the line will be. Another thing I saw is that 500,000 people is more than some big cities in the U.S., including Miami and other cities, that it would be as if the entire population of those cities was wiped out. Just so heartbreaking.
Yeah. I just had a conversation with a member of our church, and she lost her mother and father to COVID-19. And how do you recover from that? It's very, very difficult. So it's a trying time for so many people.
And one of the things that we have covered various times on this show is that the minority communities have been hurt even worse than some of the other communities, and it's something that we need to pay attention to. Often, when crises like this hit, natural disasters or something like the pandemic, we say, "Oh, this is a great equalizer. Everyone's on the in the same boat." It's not true. Look in Texas.
No.
Yes, everyone was affected, but minority populations were affected in a much worse way.
Exactly.
Disproportionately.
Yeah.
And we pay for it as a country for this situation. So we're going to be talking about your incredible work that you've done, this publishing house that you have built, and then we'll be also talking about the talk. So first, let's have you tell us the story of Just Us Books. I keep wanting to say Justice Books, but Just Us Books.
That works as well.
It works as well, I know. So please talk to us a little bit about the books, and then we'll also show some screen grabs of some of your book titles as well.
Well, Just Us really is just us. And a lot of people will kind of segue into justice because we are involved in social justice, and we are involved in making sure that African-American children are seen and represented in the books and reading materials that we publish. But we started our company over 32 years ago, and it was just us. We were sitting around our kitchen table really talking about how to get published as authors. Wade is a writer, I'm a graphic artist, and I also am an author. And we had a number of manuscripts and children's books that we had tried to get published and were not successful, had gotten plenty of rejection. So Wade, take it away with the rest of the story.
Well, actually, Cheryl had developed a group of characters called the Alphabet Kids. And she had used these kids to form the letters of the alphabet, and she had used them on posters and on T-shirts. And so we decided to do a book featuring those kids. Now she had 20, how many characters?
There were lots of them. 26.
One for each letter of the alphabet.
Yeah.
And so I suggested narrowing those kids down to 6 kids and give them names and personalities, which is what we did. And so they were introduced in the Alphabet's ABC book. We printed 5,000 copies. Now during this time, this is like 33 years ago. So we didn't know a lot about the publishing industry at the time. Social media was just getting started. It wasn't really around. So we could not get information about publishing and distribution and all that. So we started to hit the ground, understanding that we had a lot to learn as we move forward. But we printed 5,000 copies of the Alphabet's ABC book. We identified a market for the books, and we sold those books in less than 3 months, which we understand 5,000 copies is quite a bit in the children's publishing industry. And we followed that with the Alphabet's 1, 2, 3 book, the counting book, and the Book of Black Heroes. And since then, we published many books. Now, I think earlier you said that we had published 50, but actually, Cheryl and I together have written or edited 50 plus books. But Just Us Books has published many books.
That's awesome. And so great to hear about that. So walk us through like the letter A, B, and C. Tell us what they, how they, you design them. And I can see I think there are 2 girls at the letter A. And
yeah. So really, I mean, the whole idea, I started doodling, trying to decorate our daughter's room and just spelled out her name, which is Keturah. So whatever characters came up, they were just individuals at that time, didn't have names, but A became the first letter of the alphabet. So we wanted to illustrate an object, an animal, and something that's Afrocentric or related to African-American culture. So A is for apple, A is for alligator, and A is also for Africa. So with each letter of the alphabet, there are kids that make the letter form alphabet of the alphabet itself, of the letter itself. And then for B, baseball, balloon, and brown baby. And C would be car, and what else was camel, and cornrows. And cornrows being the style of hair. So it went from A to Z, and we did the alphabet book. Then we did a book of numbers, count on alphabets, 1, 2, 3. Then we used the letters of the alphabet in the Book of Black Heroes from A to Z and spelled out actual names of people like Ira Aldridge or Muhammad Ali.
And it was amazing, Sree, how children of color identified with those characters. Because when we started publishing in 1988, there were very few books for children that had Black characters in them, or even address the Black experience in any appreciable way. And so we knew that there was a market. In fact, when we took some ideas, manuscripts to several publishers, we were told by one editor that there was no market for these ideas that we had. And one editor said, Black people don't buy books. We knew that was not the case, that what the problem was, these books were not available in the marketplace. And so we decided that we will start our own company and publish the books ourselves and address that need. And, it's been an awesome journey, peaks and valleys along the way. But I think that we have helped to establish that there is a viable market for diverse books, along with other people as well.
We're so glad you took that chance and you pushed ahead and have done this for the sake of so many people around the country, and I'm sure around the world. I do want to talk about the book, The Talk Conversations, the book about various aspects of today's society, the things that we should know. The book is called The Talk Conversations about Race, Love, and Truth. And I just want to tell folks there was a Best of 2020 New York Times book, Kirkus Review's book list, New York Public Library, Chicago Public Library. Just great to see all this, and a compelling call to action for readers of any background to initiate ongoing conversations about change. And we also see a couple of your other books, Brave Black First, 50 African American Women Who Changed the World, and Wade's book, Defiant, Growing Up in the Jim Crow South. So great to see these books. Tell us about The Talk. Those of us who are not African American, one of the things we learned this past year is that when in the African American community you say the talk, it's often about talking about how you deal with the police, right, and what to do, a conversation. I have teenage children, they're Indian American, boy and girl, twins who are 17. We've had other kinds of talks, but we've never had to have that talk. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I think we all learned. So tell us about what aspect of the talk this book is about, and then we'll be bringing on Rose to ask some more questions.
Well, the talk, you mentioned that the Black parents having to have the talk with their kids, how to navigate themselves in a world that is sometimes not loving of them. One of the illustrations, and I'm going to show it here, of the talk is a picture of a mother and her son drive. Mm-hmm. What do you do if a police stops you? So this is the subject of one of the contributors. Tracy Batiste writes about having that conversation. But the conversation,
so he's putting there saying, put your hands on the dashboard.
That's right. Make sure that all of your fingers and everything is shown. That's the first thing that you do. Don't make any sudden moves. Don't reach for your pocket. Don't go under the dash. Put your hands on the dashboard so that the cops can see them. Now, that's one thing that a parent might advise. But also pull up your pants. Don't walk with your hoodie on. Make sure that you stay close to the door, or that you are facing the cash register rather than your back away from it. There are things that parents caution their sons so that they won't be profiled, and daughters as well. And it's interesting that this story, which is called 10, are 10 things that you do. The mother is giving her daughter actually advice about what to do so that you can get home safely. But the talk in general is an anthology. There are 30 conversations, and these are conversations that not only Black parents may have with their kids, but also Native parents or people from different backgrounds. You may have a talk about your religion, or being profiled because of your weight, or because they think you're an adult when you're actually a child. So with the 30 contributors, all of whom are writers from diverse backgrounds, Adam Gidwitz, Nikki Grimes, Rudy Gutierrez, April Harrison, Christopher Myers, Peter Reynolds, all of these authors speak to conversations that they may have with their children about something that they want their children to feel loved and respected and authentic within themselves.
Right. And I think too, Sree, I would like to read a couple of paragraphs from the foreword to the book, because I think it really lays out what the book is about. There are many reasons why parents and caregivers share the talk with children. For some, it's to prepare their daughter for the challenges she will surely face because she is female. Others have the talk because of their youngster's sexual orientation. Immigrant parents have few options but to have it. And many have it because their son or daughter chooses to pursue an occupation, join a team, or participate in an organization where they were not often welcome because of their physical appearance. The list goes on. There are myriad versions of the talk because there are myriad ways to be human. And we wish we had the space to capture all of these conversations within these pages, because we know they are happening and we know people are hurting. This collection focuses on race, but we hope our readers see the words and images shared here as a starting point and a way we can all begin to build a more accepting world for each other.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that and reading that out. Folks, that's the introduction. That's a little bit of the introduction of the book that they have written called The Talk. And we'll be talking more about that in just a minute. Before I bring Rose on, I just want to read some of our comments. People are watching from all around the world. Jonathan Borstein is watching from the East Village in New York. He has watched 267 episodes in a row. So thank you, Jonathan. He's also been a guest and a host with us. Oh, wow. Sneha is watching from California. Thank you so much, Sneha. Amy is watching from Bellevue, Washington. So we got the West Coast covered. We've got Debbie watching from Fort Lauderdale. Thank you for being here. And Neil Parekh, like Sneha, is part of our Digimentors team and is watching from Springfield, Virginia. And look at this. Deborah's tagging her friends. Everybody do this. You can tag them in Facebook, in Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and they can watch. As soon as we're off the air, it'll start again. And Stefan is watching and says, wonderful to be here. Love the background. Good books do make a difference, which is that motto we see there. And Stefan's in New Jersey, in Ramsey. You're in the oranges.
Yep.
And Stefan's also tagging various folks. And Daryl is watching from South Richmond Hill, the enclave of his Indo-Caribbean community, where you'll find the largest South Asian shopping district in the U.S. with 100 blocks of shopping. My goodness, that's a lot. And Kurt Boone, who's been a fabulous guest on this show twice, says, great interview. I know Cheryl and Wade.
We know, yeah. We've known him for 20 years.
Yeah. Outstanding book publishers. I did some marketing work with them in the past, and he, folks, you might remember him if you haven't seen our episode with him. He's a photojournalist, bike messenger, writer, poet, style maven, all of that. You can just go back into my archives, youtube.com/Sreenet, and find it. And Apollo is watching from Montclair, New Jersey. So we got New Jersey here. And Apollo says, I remember reading The Bluest Eye as my introduction to Black literature in middle school. Then I read Richard Wright and Baldwin. I wasn't really ever allowed in American fantasy because I learned it to be a hostile environment, oftentimes deadly. And he's also tagging people. And then he says that I saw the video of Rodney King in '92 and I lived in LA. Then I learned one needed to be slow, calm, speak slowly, must control the optics of the white or police security gaze. It's how race circumscribes a Black person's mind that other people's minds are never bound within. Very well put. Miriam, who's a fabulous photographer, says it's terrible that such a talk is necessary. And Beth is watching from outside Boston. And Rose is tagging Susan Farewell, Valerie Cabral, Jerry Kraft, and lots of other folks as well. So it's great to have all of this. So let's bring in Rose Horowitz, our one of our co-producers of the show. She's been with me for 267 episodes, and she is a journalist and the creator of the hashtag Women to Follow, which everybody should check out. And we're just so glad that she's able to join us here. And she's going to ask you a few questions. I was the softball warm-up act. Now you watch out. The questions are going to get super
interrogation.
Yeah, exactly. Hi, Rose. Great to have you here. Take it away. Sorry, Rose, you're muted there. You were having, let's see if she can just unmute.
There we go. So sorry. Great to be here, and thanks so much for joining us. It's a real honor.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you if you could read. We talked about you reading from some of your work. I know you read the preface to the talk, but I know you have your own Wade book of poetry that just came out. And if you could talk about that and maybe talk about your book that's upcoming called Defiant. Okay,
sure. Journey Poems by Wade Hudson was published in August of this year. I started writing as a little kid, and I wrote poetry at first. So I would sit on my front porch and write poems about the weather, about the people in my community, because in school there were no poems that we read in our English books or literature books that reflected my culture, or the people that I knew. So I started writing those myself. I sort of got away from writing poetry later on. I started writing plays, and I've had a few plays produced on the regional stage. And then Cheryl and I started our children's publishing company. And about a year and a half ago, we were in Havana, Cuba for the Havana Book Fair. And an old mentor of mine, Haki Marabuti, who started Third World Press 50 years ago and is still publishing, we were talking about my poems. And I said, you know, I would love to be published by Third World Press. Third World Press has published Nikki Giovanni, Amiri Baraka, a lot of the poets of the Black Arts Movement. Mm-hmm. And I grew up on those books. And so he said, well, you know, go ahead and, you know, select some poems and send it to us and we'll check them out. And anyway, to make a long story short, the result is this. Poem. There are some older poems and many new ones, but the one I want to read is actually a poem I wrote in response to the murder of Michael Brown, and it's called Young Michael Brown. Young Michael Brown was gunned down today, yet another brother got in the way. Old racial animus still holding sway. As in the past, will there be no debt to pay? Young Michael Brown is not here anymore. Another family's son added to the score. Black lies stuffed out, thieves pounding at the door, spitting out bullets, guns screaming for more. Young Michael, I cry for you, son. For Trayvon, Jordan, Eric, all the others gone. Life so dear, gone in a flash. How long ago was the whip and the lash? Been in the struggle all my days, victories and defeats every step of the way. Faith and hope continued to stay. Both were tested when Michael was killed today. But the struggle continues, no time to suspend. Stand up, speak out, implore all to join in. Ida B, Freddie D, Harriet, and Martin all send this powerful message. The quest for freedom never ends.
Very powerful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll talk a little bit about the memoir, Defiant, after Cheryl reads from hers. If that's okay.
That's fine. That's great. We'd love to hear you, Cheryl.
Well, what I'd like to talk about, and you've talked about this a lot, is women. Braid Black First. This is a collection of African-American women, actually 50 who changed the world. And it was a collaboration, a partnership with the Smithsonian, the National Museum of African-American History and Culture. And the thing that I like about it is that, okay, there are 50 women, 50 girls, 50 females, but these are all people who somehow did something that was first and important. It was bold, it was brave, they were Black. And there's something, or article of clothing or memorabilia or some connection to the Museum of African American History. So that was one of the criteria for one of the some of the people who were, or all of them actually, who were involved. And this is Ruby Bridges. And in each biography, they're short and they're illustrated for middle readers.
Just for our audience who may not know, what age are middle readers?
Readers are usually 9 to 12 or sometimes 10 and up, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grade. Okay. Ruby Bridges, who was born in 1954 in Tylertown, Mississippi. And a quote from her is that kids know nothing about racism. They're taught that by adults. When Ruby Bridges walked up the steps of William Franz Elementary School on her first day of school, she had to pass through a mob of protesting, screaming adults. It was November 14th, 1960, and these hateful whites didn't want a 6-year-old Black child attending school with their children. To protect her, 4 United States Marshals escorted Ruby to class. Legendary artist Norman Rockwell commemorated Ruby's experience in his famous painting, The Problem We All Live With. That image, however, did not capture the full scale of the trauma that Ruby experienced. So that, in a sense, captures Ruby Bridges and her first day of school, but it also portends more of her experience. She went to school for a full year by herself in a classroom with only her teacher, and the parents withdrew their children from the William Frantz School in New Orleans. So this was a pivotal time in history. That was very close to my first day in school. She was born on the first day that I went to school in 1954, when desegregation was, starting to make its way into the school system and into rights for Black Americans. So her life is important, and she's the first one who's presented in this book as a child, and children will be able to identify with this, but parents will as well.
That's terrific. Can you name us somebody in that book who we don't know much about?
You might not know about Faith Ringgold, Madam C.J. Walker.
Tell us about Madam C.J. Walker, because I know that you won an award, both of you, for your publishing, which Just Us Books, which was started in 1988, and it was the Madam C.J. Walker Legacy Award.
Right.
Yeah. Madam C.J. Walker was an entrepreneur. She built her own empire based on hair care products. She was a millionaire. She had a home on the Hudson. She was a patron of the arts and supported in the 20s. She built almost like what you would consider Avon or representatives, Black representatives she made beauty products, and they sold them across the country, and she built her own business. So she was an entrepreneur who was very much vested in the African-American community, and a big supporter of artists and writers during the Harlem Renaissance as well. So people may be familiar with her, Ruby Dee. There are other people. I'm thinking of Augusta Savage, who was a sculptor. So all of the women in this book have come from different backgrounds, whether it's politics or the arts or dance or education. Everybody has been bold, and they've been brave, and they've been
awesome. That's the idea with my with Woman to Follow is to I started a hashtag trend to name women to follow in all different fields to amplify the voices of women, especially on social media. I guess this goes back because when I was a young girl, I found a poster, we were moving, that I created when I was 16 of a scale, a justice scale, and women and men, and a collage I made of women and men being equal.
Wow. Revolutionary, right?
So is there something else you'd like to read from? One of your own picture books or?
Well, you know what? I'd like to read Bright Eyes, Brown Skin. This is a book, a picture book now, which has been done in several formats. Big book, it's been done as a picture book, hardcover, paperback, and now a board book. And this was a collaboration between myself and a good friend, Burnett Ford, and her husband, who is an illustrator. And I just love the book because all of the kids in the book are their cousins, actually. Olivia is their daughter, and it was made from a different idea that I had, but it went into another phase. So bright eyes, brown skin, a heart-shaped face, a dimpled chin, bright eyes, and the pages are stuck, cheeks that glow, chubby fingers, ticklish toes, a playful grin, a perfect nose, very special hair and clothes, bright eyes, turn the page, ears to listen, lips to kiss you, and teeth that glisten, bright eyes, brown skin, warm as toast, and all tucked in. That's just a day in the life of a child going to preschool. And it just kind of points out that all books don't have to have a tragic character who's not involved. The kids can just enjoy being themselves. They can enjoy the features of their skin. They can enjoy one another in play. That's Bright Eyes, Brown Skin.
That's awesome.
One of our biggest sellers too.
Yes, beautiful book. Beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Maybe if you could talk to us, because many people may not realize, you shared with me a graphic that showed the percentage of subjects who are white versus who are Black. In 1918, it was gathered by somebody, some organization that you know. So I think it was maybe 6%.
It's 10 actually.
Yeah.
10.
Now,
This was a graphic that was put together by a professor of children's literature, Sarah Park Dahlen and David Hoyk, which shows the percentage of representation of various groups: African American, Latinx, Asian Pacific Islander, animals, and other. And in 2012, there were 3% of the books collected and tracked by the Cooperative Book Center in Madison, Wisconsin, showed African-American children at the center of the story. 1.5% were Latinx. Under 1% were Native American. And almost 93% were white. So that shows the level of trade books available in the marketplace. Now, this was a sample of about 3,000, it may have been 4,000, published by the major presses. In 2018, those numbers increased. There were maybe 1% Native American, 5% Latinx, 7% Asian Pacific Islander, 10% African American. But again, over 50% of the books and characters in those books were white. And of those books, also 27% were books about animals.
So 77%.
So 77% about somebody else other than people of color.
Yeah, but I think
incredible statistics, and I think surprising. I mean, I would imagine there's a majority. I knew there was a majority, but for it to only have grown right now to feature Black children, only 10% are featuring children of color.
Right, and some of those people are not necessarily African American. They're not always written by Black people or people of color.
Okay.
But I think that we must say that that growth is a result of a lot of hard work by a lot of people, including Just Us Books. Things are changing slowly, but they are changing, and I think that we have to continue to be persistent and insistent on inclusion and diversity. And I think one of the areas that really needs to be addressed, not just the number of books, but how those books are marketed and sold. Because often what publishers say, if they publish a book written by a Black author, if it doesn't sell, it makes it more difficult for another Black author to get a book deal. But from a marketing standpoint, they are still learning how to market to a diverse market, because they normally market to using traditional marketing sources, marketing resources. So they're not really reaching a large segment of the marketplace. I think one thing that set us apart from some of the major publishing houses is that early on we identified sororities, fraternities, church groups, other organizations and institutions within the Black community that we could reach out to and promote our books to. And we sold a lot of books. Now, these books are not necessarily on the bestsellers list because these are not reporting sources. So publishing companies sometimes shy away from that because they're looking for the bestseller. And I think you really have to be more interested in getting books into the hands of as many young people as possible. Because as we say, good books make a difference.
And is that, you mentioned that major publishers are writing more books for multicultural audience. Are they marketing it more in some of the places that you found were successful for you?
They are learning. Again, many of them are operating on a structure that to some degree have served them well. They are doing pretty good. So it's difficult to get them to change strategies. I think they are starting to listen more now because there are more people of color who are actually in publishing. We are able to put more pressure on a lot of the major players in the industry. And so we are raising our voices. And I think that raising our voices has paid off to some extent. There are so many different initiatives now really addressing diversity and inclusion, so it's almost like with the social justice movement. The more
it's mirroring that a bit.
Yeah. Except we really came before the social justice movement because we've been fighting for diversity and inclusion in children's books since the 1980s.
Your mission.
Yeah, that's why we started the company.
We have a question for you from one of our listeners. They're asking, who's writing? What authors' writing impacted you the most when you were children?
I would say Langston Hughes, probably, and Gwendolyn Brooks. I would say probably Langston Hughes more, and even Paul Laurence Dunbar. We had Negro History Week back in the 50s and 60s. It's now become Black History Month. But during that time, that was probably the only time during the year that we were exposed to writers and poets. So you'd have a Negro History contest or a recitation in school. So I think I would say Langston Hughes.
Honestly, the book that really inspired me was Black Boy by Richard Wright. I did not know that book existed until I got to college. And it really helped me understand that I could become a writer too. Growing up, I used to write, I wrote a play in the 9th grade that our school produced, but I never really thought that I could make a career as a writer because I didn't know any Black people who were writing professionally, and we didn't have their books in our library, so for me growing up, they didn't exist. It was like I was in a vacuum.
Had you read any poets like Langston Hughes or?
No, Langston Hughes did not exist again for me, like Richard Wright, until I actually got to college. And when I went to college and I saw all these wonderful books written by all these great Black writers, I was angry for a whole semester. Where have these people been? But that's what Jim Crow and segregation does. What made it into our school curriculum and the libraries were decisions made by people who were racist.
Tell us just briefly, tell us where you were born.
I was born and raised in Mansfield, Louisiana. And I came of age during the Civil Rights Movement. And in fact, my memoir, Defiant, Growing Up in the Jim Crow South, is about growing up in that small town in Louisiana. And it would be released in October of this year. Yep.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now what writers are you reading? Let's say contemporary writers. Is there anyone, special poets, or you can tell us about?
I love Toni Morrison. I read, mostly I'm reading now YA writers, middle readers. I'm doing reading of writers that the 5th graders will read. Rita Williams Garcia is another fantastic writer. Jacqueline Woodson, National Book Award winner.
Yes.
Renee Watson.
Nikki Grimes.
Jason Reynolds.
Nikki Grimes, who we've had on the show twice.
We've actually published. We published.
Yeah, we published Nikki about 20 years ago, actually. Yeah. So
Kwame Alexander is another excellent writer. too.
Yes, I met him actually. Yeah, I've met him.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi, Sree.
Hi, just wanted to say, so enjoying this conversation so much. Want to just get a couple more questions in, and then we'll let you go because it's already 9:45 Eastern time. Your folks are still at the office, which is amazing. Can you tell us the secrets of working together? A lot of couples have been forced to just be in the same space working because of the pandemic. But here you are, you voluntarily chose to work together. You've done it for so many years now. What are the secrets for the rest of us?
I'll let Cheryl answer that.
Oh, see, now that's deflecting. Actually, I think that the secret is really having a tremendous amount of respect for one another and what each one of us has gifts that we bring to the table. I started out in educational publishing in the art field, selecting photographs and doing photo research and permissions and that kind of thing. And I pretty much stayed to that in terms of editorial direction. Wade handles marketing and just the general functioning of the scope and scale of our company. So I think we kind of try to stay out of each other's lane, or stay in our own lane.
Yeah. We identified responsibilities early on. But I think also we have a lot of similar interests. And when we first met, I mean, we like going to jazz clubs. We enjoy dance. We enjoy plays. And in fact, before we started Just Us Books, we used to help assist each other with other interests. I mean, Cheryl is an artist, and I used to help market some of her exhibits. She would help design some of the play bills for my plays early on. All of this happened before we started Just Us Books. So we've been working together as a team from the beginning, really.
And that's been almost, that's
a lot of years.
A lot of years.
So I can't ask you how many years you're married, or
well, you can ask 48.
48 years. 48.
Wow! Congratulations. I have a friend who was when his marriage turned 55 years of marriage. He said the first 47 are the hardest. After that, it's a piece of cake. So you folks are already at 48. So that's good. Let's see here. Beth Goldman says, my daughter, now 18, loves Brown Girl Dreaming. That's great. And there's a question from Kurt. I think their screen is frozen. I wonder, let's see if they can refresh their screens, if they can hear us. If they can refresh their screens, that would help. We'll just give it a minute. Rose, it's so great that you were able to bring them to us, and this is such a great conversation.
Such a great story of how they started this when they couldn't find art for their daughter's room.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'll try. Oh, here. I was just going to try them in the chat, but
yeah. So we'll see if they come back.
Okay.
There was a question also for them from Kurt. But this has been just a great conversation. We'll give them another minute and see if they're able to join us. What are you reading these days, Rose?
I have just finished reading Caste by Isabel Wilkerson.
We have here. My daughter's reading it right now. Yeah.
It's really terrific. I mean, it's one of these books that when I started reading, I said, I will, it's like seminal kind of work. It just makes you see things, and has made a lot of things that have been going on make a lot of sense. Because the way she looks at caste in particularly in the U.S., in Germany, and in India. So I would love to hear what your daughter and you think of.
Yeah, I can't wait to read it. After my daughter, I'll be reading that. It's gotten so much attention, and especially, I mean, to someone from India to see caste being discussed across these three countries is going to be fascinating. And so much of what's going on in India today is still affected by caste. And so
she talked about traveling there for some conferences, and that even within she was able to kind of distinguish who was Brahmin, and who was, I'm not sure the lowest name, how you say that, but
the Dalits, yeah.
Yes. And she talked about how even with the people who were acknowledging that this is something we have to, that it still went on. So there's all these unconscious, biases that we have. And it's sort of fascinating and it kind of, I think, sheds a big light on what's happened in America since, for a long time. But if you look at it in current events and what happened, with the election of Obama and a reaction to that, and it show, if you see it in the faces of the people who are fighting, who invaded the Capitol somehow, the thing most people, she's saying, cling on to, not so much about money, but what's their value, what's their worth, and that color is the prime marker of that.
Yeah, and it is so tragic. In America, I have found it is, the immigrants who come here have left that behind for the most part. But last year, there was a lawsuit in California where a major company was sued, a tech company, by a Dalit American who said that people wanted to find out his caste. And once they did, they treated him worse, and so that brought a lot of attention to caste in how caste unfolds within the immigrant community here. Rose, do you want to just maybe email them and ask them to see if they can rejoin us?
Sure.
And if they can't, otherwise, it's already 9:50. So
okay.
or you call them. I'll just take you off screen for a second,
okay,
so you can come back on. Folks, we were just listening to an amazing conversation with Cheryl Willis Hudson and Wade Hudson, the publishers of Just Us books. And we learned so much. We just didn't get a chance to properly say goodbye. We'll try to do that. We'll see if we can bring them back on. And if we can't, that's okay. I also want to remind you that we have another show that we do every single Sunday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. And just to show you what we've done in the last month, we had Charles Blow. So we read the New York Times out loud like crazy people. We've been doing it for more than 5 years. And then we have a guest with us. So we if you go back in our archives on YouTube /SreeNet, you can find our interview with Charles Blow, the author of The Devil You Know, incredible book. We had George Vesey for Super Bowl Sunday, who's a longtime New York Times sports columnist. We had Daniel Jones for Valentine's Day. He's the editor of the Modern Love column, the podcast, and the TV show. And that was an incredible conversation, as you can imagine. Last Sunday, we had Elizabeth Becker, a longtime war correspondent and the author of You Don't Belong Here, How 3 Women Rewrote the Story of War. And this coming Sunday, the New York Times Your Money columnist, Ron Lieber, will be with us. He's also the author of a new book called The Price You Pay for College. And anyone who has children or anyone who is planning to go to college should definitely read that book. And that's this Sunday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time on my social channels. And it, of course, is recorded and available right after there as well. So with that, we're just going to give it another second. Let's see if there are any comments coming in here. And we will then we'll see if I can get Rose back here with us. And Sneha says, here's an article about how caste in Silicon Valley for anyone interested. And so this was about the Cisco discrimination lawsuit and what happened with that. And Sneha also said to Wade and Cheryl that your story is such a source of hope for everyone interested in social change. You really walked the talk and focused on taking action to build a better world for future generations. Thank you. We'll have to send this to Cheryl and Wade. And Rose, if you're ready, you can just put yourself back on the screen and we'll just bring you back. If they're not able to join us, that's okay at this point. But Rose, why don't you come back on the screen yourself? And let's see. There you are, Rose.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just spoke to Wade, and they're going to try their phone. So let's see if that.
We'll give it a minute here, and we'll see. Remind us of our conversation with Nikki Grimes, which was just like today, a very inspirational conversation with a person who writes a lot for young writers.
Yeah. she said she grew up reading a lot of the Black Renaissance poets, and she has a book I think it's out now. That looks at all these women and these Black poets that many of us have not heard about. She talked about how we talked during the beginning of the pandemic, and she said, she kind of gives herself grace that some days she's going to write a lot, and other days, she's going to let it be. She's come out now with she has a biography of Kamala Harris that's, I think, made it to the bestseller list a few times, in the Times, New York Times Book Review section. She's really prolific. I can't keep track.
I remember the number was like some, amazingly
70.
Out of reach number, like 70 books or something.
Yeah, 75, I think. Yeah.
And then she came on again.
Yeah.
And she came on again to talk to us, and it was just so great to hear her. And you did such a great job. These, so many different topics, but you were always bringing us back to poetry and writing and children's authors. I know there are several folks who were parents of young kids who loved having these kinds of folks available to them. And Tim Sohn is watching from Pennsylvania and says, "Awesome earrings, Rose." And I second that. So thank you.
There's nowhere to go. I have to get dressed up if I'm coming on the show.
But things are lightening up a little bit in Connecticut, or how are things?
They are. I mean, I think Connecticut is ranked number 4 in terms of getting the vaccines into people's arms.
That's great.
And they're doing it, I guess it's somewhat up to each state how they're going to do it. And they announced that, I think it was for 75 and up. And then and then for teachers, I think was like Group B. And they've just announced this week that starting March 1, it's going to be for people, I think it's 55 to 64. So I don't know where that leaves, more vulnerable populations, but that's whereas I think in New York City, they are if you have a pre-existing condition, which can be any age, you get you're up, you get to be in line for vaccine.
I know that in New Jersey, if you have asthma or conditions like that, also you get a leg up on that. So Apollo says, great to see you all. It was a great show. Thank you. I'll just take you off, Rose. Go ahead. Rose is talking to them. Rose, I think we'll let them go. It's already 10 o'clock Eastern time, so I don't know if Rose can hear me, but I will just say thank you to everybody for joining us, for being such great supporters of the show. It will be a year on March 14th that we've been on the air. We'd love your feedback, ideas on who we should have, if any guests you want us to bring back for that. And
I want to say I have Wade on the phone.
Oh, good. So Wade, we just wanted to say thank you. And if you want to just give us some final thoughts, we'll let you go.
Here.
Are you on? Is he on speaker? Can you put him on speaker?
I have it on speaker. Wade, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So when you speak, we have you on speaker.
Well, Wade, if you can give us some final thoughts, I will read you a comment from one of our attendees here, our viewers today. Sneha says, your story is such a source of hope for everyone interested in social change. You've really walked the talk and focused on taking action to build a better world for future generations. Thank you, she says. So thank you for that. And any final words that you want to share?
Yeah, I think that we are at a pivotal time in our country and the world now. There is a lot that can be done to make this a better world for everybody, and particularly for our young people. So my hope and as well as Cheryl's about prayer is that we will all stand up to do the hard work that is necessary to make a difference and to continue to move our country and our world in a progressive way, so that more people can be empowered, more people can know that they are loved, and again, particularly our children. Again, this is an exciting time, I think, because so much still can be done.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'll just read Kurt Boone's quick question. I remember you working on trying to license Just Us Books characters into toys and television and movies. With all these Black TV shows and products featuring Black characters today, are you finding interest in that kind of opportunity?
Yeah, we are revisiting that. We've already identified some possibilities. And again, I mean, this, as I was saying earlier, this is an exciting time, and I think there are more companies, more people who are open because of what's happening with the social justice movement, and they need. Oh, okay, we're back.
So we're back now. Okay.
You folks are awesome. Thank you so much.
We
go ahead and finish your thought. Thank you.
Yeah. So to answer Kurt's question, yes, we are revisiting that, and hopefully we'll be able to place those characters with some toy companies.
That's just great. We want to thank you both for taking the time. Here you are at 10 o'clock at night. I know you have to get home. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing your ideas, your thoughts, your smiles with us tonight. And you've given a lot of people lots of things to be interested about. Nikhil says he's just joined, but he's already hooked, and I'll watch the rerun. So thank you, Nikhil. And to everyone, thank you for your support of this show. And we couldn't do it without awesome guests like Cheryl and Wade. And Rose, thank you again.
Thank you. It was really inspirational to hear you talk about each of your backgrounds and how you began the company and walking the walk that you've done. It's a great mission, really.
Yeah. Everyone, check out justusbooks.com or justicebooks.com. Justice, books, social justice, and so much more. But books aimed at young people. Multicultural books that they've done for more than 30 years. It's incredible. Thank you very much.